In this lesson, I want to talk for a moment about Flash file types. There are a few different file types that we're going to be working with when we're dealing with Flash, and we need to understand what all of these file types are. So I'm going to start by saving our current file, which is just a blank, untitled document. We'll click on File, Save As, and inside our Intro Flash CS4 folder, we have a Project Files folder. So inside the Project Files folder, I'm just going to call this sample.fla. So FLA is going to be the first file type we're going to talk about. An FLA document, or your plain Flash document, is an editable document where you can go in and make changes to your Flash website, your Flash animation, your game, whatever it is you're making. This is going to be the file that you can actually go in and edit. And let's go ahead and save that. Now if we go to our Windows Explorer here, go into our Project Files folder. Your Project Files folder is going to be crowded with a lot of files, but right now I'm only seeing one. I'm seeing this sample.fla file. And this is the file that we just saved. Now if we go back to our Flash file, and we'll talk more about publishing later, but very quickly I just want to go to File, Publish. Now by default, when we use that File Publish command, it will create an HTML file and a SWF file, an SWF file. So if we go back to our Windows Explorer here, you'll see that in addition to our sample.fla, we also have sample.html and sample.swf. The SWF file is the published Flash file. And you'll often hear me referring to an SWF file as your SWF file. Your SWF file is the published file, the file that you would actually upload to your web server. You'll never upload your FLA file. This is just for editing your document. When you actually publish it, it will be an SWF file. Now you'll notice it also published an HTML file with it. An HTML file is a simple web document, a hypertext document. And if we double click to open up that hypertext document, it will open up a browser window, and in that browser window we will see our SWF file. Now our SWF file is just white right now. Let's make this smaller so we can actually see it. Here's Firefox here. Now again, as I mentioned, our SWF file is only has a white background and there's nothing on it yet, so we can't really see anything. But if we go back to Flash and let's just draw a rectangle on the stage, and then we'll save our FLA file. Now let me go ahead and point out that when we save our FLA file, it's not automatically going to update our SWF file. If we go back to Firefox now and refresh our page, you'll see that nothing has changed. What we need to do is go back to Flash and republish it. So we'll go to File, Publish. That will publish our document one more time, and now when we go to Firefox and refresh our page, we can actually see the content of our Flash file. So basically what's happening is when we publish our file, we're creating two files here, and the SWF file is linked to within our HTML document. The HTML document is pointing to that SWF file. So when you actually publish this to the internet, you're going to need to upload both the HTML and the SWF file. Now if we go back into Flash and look at our publish settings, we'll go to File, Publish Settings. We can see some different options here. If we wanted to publish this as just an image file, so that all we have is an image of this rectangle, we can choose, for example, GIF, JPEG, or PNG, and it would do that for us. We could also publish it as a Windows projector file so that you could just open it up. It's an exe file. I don't really suggest doing that very often. Or we could do a Macintosh projector file as well. But those are your basic options. Now if we turn on Flash and HTML again, you'll notice that we have tabs that appear that allow us to edit our Flash settings and our HTML settings. We're not going to really talk about those for now, but it's good to know that those are there. And another way that we can publish our file, other than just going to File, Publish, is inside our Publish settings. We can click down here on this link that says Publish, and it will publish our file again. I'll click on OK. And I want to point out one more thing very quickly. Often when we're working on our Flash file throughout this video series, you'll hear me talking about testing the movie. We can test the movie by hitting Control-Enter on our keyboard, or Command-Return if you're using a Mac. Now that command is actually located under the Control menu, and you'll see we have this option for Test Movie, and there's the keyboard shortcut there, Control-Enter. Test Movie will basically open up another window within Flash that will give us a preview of what our movie looks like. And you'll see this is our sample.swift file. And when we publish that, it actually publishes that Swift file. If that Swift file already exists, it replaces that Swift file. Now let's close this, go back to our Windows Explorer here, and let's just delete the sample.html and the sample.swift file. So I'll highlight both of those, hit delete. Yes, I'm sure. So that all we have now in that folder is the sample.fla file. Now I'm going to go back to Flash, and I'm going to hit Control Enter or Command Return on a Mac to test our movie, or you can go to Control Test Movie, and we'll see a preview of our file. If there's any animation in our file, we'll see that here. And then we can close this, go back to Windows Explorer, and we can see that it has published a Swift file for us. So that's very handy to know. So if you, let's delete that. If we go to Flash, go to File, Publish, it publishes our file so that we now have, again, an HTML and a Swift file in there. And if we open up our HTML document again, we can see that red rectangle. If we want to update the Swift file, but we don't necessarily need to republish the HTML file, if we go back into Flash here, let's just say we wanted to create another square that was a different color. So we'll create another square here. And then instead of going to File, Publish, I'm just going to go to Control Test Movie or Control Enter, and it will republish the Swift file, but it won't really do anything to the HTML file. So we can close that preview. We can go back to Firefox here and refresh the page, and we see that even though we didn't go to File, Publish, it still republished that SWF file and replaced the current SWF file. So even though the HTML file is still pointing to that same Swift document, the Swift document has actually changed because we tested our movie and republished that Swift file. So I hope that that has given you a little bit of an understanding of how files work in Flash, what our different files are. As a very quick review, the FLA file with the .fla extension is the file that we can edit. That's the file that we're going to open whenever we go into Flash and start, creating our Flash files. That's our FLA file. The Swift file, or the .swf file, is the published version of that. You cannot open a Swift file and make changes to it. You can't change the animation by opening up a Swift file. All of that is done in the FLA file. And when you publish your document to the web, you're going to upload both your sample.html file and your sample.swift file. So that's a brief overview of all the files that we have to work with in Flash CS4.